I noticed it 3 weeks before the Christmas party, though I didn't realise what it meant at the time. Marcus had this habit of checking his phone between meetings, scrolling through dating apps with this look on his face like he was shopping for shoes he didn't really want to buy. We shared a cubicle wall at the marketing firm downtown, thin enough that I could hear him typing, sighing, the little notification sounds his phone made throughout the day. Then, one Tuesday morning in early December, the sounds just stopped. I'm not the kind of person who pays attention to coworkers' personal lives. I keep my head down, do my work, go home to my studio apartment, and my cat, and my carefully curated life that doesn't require explaining myself to anyone. Being gay at work isn't something I hide exactly, but it's not something I advertise either. There's a photo of me and my friends at Pride on my desk, small enough that you'd have to look closely to understand what you're seeing. That's how I like it. Safe. Controlled. But Marcus was different from the start. He'd joined our team 6 months ago. This tall guy with dark curly hair and an easy smile that made everyone in the office gravitate toward him. He had this energy, like he was genuinely interested in what you had to say, even if you were just talking about your weekend or complaining about the coffee machine. Within a week, he knew everyone's names, their kids' names, what they did for fun. He remembered things. With me, he was careful in a way I noticed but couldn't quite interpret. Respectful of my space, never assuming we'd be friends just because we sat near each other. But he'd ask questions sometimes, real ones, about the book I was reading, about the band on my coffee mug, about whether I'd tried the new Thai place that opened on 5th Street. And when I answered, he'd actually listen, his brown eyes focused on my face like I was saying something that mattered. I'd catch myself watching him sometimes when he didn't know I was looking. The way he'd run his hand through his hair when he was concentrating, how he'd lean back in his chair and stretch his arms over his head, his shirt riding up just enough to show a strip of skin above his belt. I'd feel something tighten in my chest, this familiar ache I'd learned to ignore. Because Marcus was straight. Obviously straight. He talked about his dating app matches, the women he'd gone out with, his disastrous relationship with his ex-girlfriend Sarah who'd moved to Portland last year. So when the phone sound stopped, I told myself it didn't mean anything. Maybe he'd met someone. Maybe he was taking a break from dating. It wasn't my business. The office Christmas party was scheduled for the Friday before Christmas week, at this hotel downtown with a ballroom that tried too hard to be elegant. Our company went all out. Open bar, catered food, a DJ playing music that was carefully selected to offend no one and excite no one. I almost didn't go. I never enjoyed these things, the forced socializing, the way alcohol made people think they were suddenly your best friend. But my friend Jen from accounting had convinced me, promising she'd stick by my side and we could leave early. I wore my good blazer, the charcoal one that actually fit, with a dark blue shirt underneath. Jen whistled when she saw me. "You clean up nice," she said, linking her arm through mine as we walked into the ballroom. "Try not to break too many hearts tonight." I laughed, but my eyes were already scanning the room, looking for Marcus without meaning to. I found him near the bar, wearing a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, talking to someone from sales. Even from across the room I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he wasn't quite present in the conversation. He looked tired, I thought, or worried. Something. The party progressed the way these things always do. Awkward small talk, lukewarm appetizers, people getting progressively louder as the drinks flowed. I nursed a gin and tonic and let Jen do most of the talking, content to observe from the margins. But I kept noticing Marcus throughout the night. The way he'd drift from group to group without really settling anywhere. The way he'd check his phone and then put it away without responding to whatever he saw. Around 9, I stepped outside for some air. The hotel had a terrace that overlooked the city, strings of white lights making everything look softer than it was. It was cold, that sharp December cold that makes your breath visible, but I needed the quiet, the space to just exist without performing. I'd been out there maybe 5 minutes when I heard the door open behind me. I didn't turn around, assuming whoever it was would leave when they saw the terrace was occupied. But then I heard his voice. "Mind if I join you?" I turned, and there was Marcus, hands in his pockets, that uncertain smile on his face. "Of course not," I said, trying to sound casual, even though my heart had started beating faster. He came to stand beside me at the railing, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something clean and woodsy that made me want to lean closer. We stood in silence for a moment, looking out at the city lights. "Not your scene either?" he asked finally. I shook my head. I always feel like I'm playing a role at these things, like there's a script I'm supposed to follow and I never quite learned the lines." He laughed, a soft sound that seemed to surprise him. Yeah, exactly that." More silence, but it felt different now, charged with something I couldn't name. I could feel the warmth of him beside me despite the cold, could hear his breathing, steady and deep. "Can I ask you something?" he said, his voice quieter now. "Sure." He turned to face me and I made myself meet his eyes. In the string lights, they looked almost black. "How did you know?" he asked. "About yourself. When did you know?" My breath caught. This wasn't a question straight guys asked, not like this, not with this kind of intensity. "I don't know," I said slowly. "I think I always knew, in some way. But admitting it, accepting it, that took longer." "Why?" He looked away, back out at the city. "I deleted my dating apps," he said. 3 weeks ago, all of them." I waited, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. "I kept matching with all these women," he continued, "and they were nice, you know, attractive, interesting, the kind of women I'm supposed to want. But every time I'd set up a date, I'd feel this dread. Like I was forcing myself through the motions of something that was supposed to feel exciting, and I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be normal?" "Marcus," I said softly. He shook his head. "And then one day, I was sitting at my desk and you walked by to get coffee, and you were humming something under your breath and you had this little smile like you were thinking about something that made you happy. And I realized I'd been waiting for that moment all morning, waiting to see you. And I thought, oh no." The world seemed to have gone very quiet. Even the sounds from the party inside had faded, leaving just the two of us and the cold air and the truth hanging between us. "I'm not," he said, then stopped. "I don't know what I am. All I know is that I can't stop thinking about you. The way you concentrate when you're working, that little furrow you get between your eyebrows, the way you're kind to people even when you're having a bad day, the way you laugh, really laugh, when something actually strikes you as funny. I notice everything about you, and I don't know what to do with that." I was trembling, though whether from cold or emotion I couldn't tell. "How long?" I managed to ask. He ran his hand through his hair, that gesture I'd watched 100 times. Honestly, probably since the day I started. But I didn't let myself acknowledge it. I kept dating women, kept telling myself I was just adjusting to the new job, that I was distracted. But I wasn't distracted. I was just trying not to see what was right in front of me. I turned to face him fully. "And what do you see now?" He met my eyes, and the vulnerability in his expression made my chest ache. "I see someone I want to know everything about. Someone who makes me want to be braver than I am. Someone who scares me, because caring about him means admitting things about myself I've spent my whole life avoiding." I reached out slowly, giving him time to move away if he wanted to, but he didn't move. I let my hand rest on his forearm, feeling the warmth of him through his shirt. "You don't have to have all the answers right now," I said. "You don't have to put a label on anything or figure out your entire identity tonight. You just have to be honest about what you're feeling." "I'm terrified," he said, and his voice cracked slightly. "I'm 32 years old, and I feel like I'm starting from zero. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm just confused?" I squeezed his arm gently. "What does your gut tell you?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "My gut tells me that standing here with you feels more right than anything I've felt in years." Something warm bloomed in my chest, hope and fear and possibility all tangled together. "Then maybe start there," I said. "You don't have to make any big declarations or come out to anyone or change your whole life overnight. Just be honest with yourself about what you're feeling. And with you," he said. "Can I be honest with you? Always." He took a deep breath. "I want to spend time with you. Real time. Not just seeing you at work. I want to take you to dinner or coffee or just walk around the city talking about nothing. I want to see what this is, what it could be. And I know that's asking a lot, asking you to be patient while I figure myself out, but I'm asking anyway." I looked at him, this man who'd somehow worked his way past all my defenses without even trying, and felt something shift inside me. It wasn't asking too much. It was exactly what I wanted, even though I'd never let myself want it before. "Okay," I said simply. He blinked. Okay. Let's get coffee, let's take walks, let's see what this is." The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise, transforming everything. Really? Really. But Marcus, I need you to know something. This isn't going to be easy. Figuring out your sexuality as an adult, it's complicated and messy and sometimes painful. There are going to be moments when you doubt yourself, when you're scared, when you want to run back to what feels safe and familiar, and I can be patient with that. I can support you through it, but I can't be your experiment. I need to know you're serious about this, about exploring these feelings authentically. He nodded, his expression sobering. I understand, and I am serious. I've never been more serious about anything. We stood there for another moment just looking at each other, and I felt the weight of the moment, the significance of it. This was a beginning, fragile and uncertain, but real. The door to the terrace opened and someone called out that they were cutting the cake. The spell broke and we both laughed a little, the tension easing. We should probably go back in, I said, even though I didn't want to move. Yeah, he agreed, but he didn't move either. Then he said, tomorrow, coffee tomorrow. There's that place on 8th you mentioned once, the one with the good espresso. Tomorrow, I confirmed, and let myself smile at him. Really smile, without trying to hide what I was feeling. We went back inside together, back to the noise and the lights and the party, but everything felt different now. Jen caught my eye from across the room and raised her eyebrows questioningly. I just shook my head, unable to stop smiling. The rest of the party passed in a blur. I was aware of Marcus across the room, of the occasional glance we'd share, the small smile he'd give me that felt like a secret we were keeping. When it was time to leave, he appeared at my side as I was getting my coat. Text me when you get home safe, he asked quietly. I will, I said, and felt my heart do something complicated in my chest. That night, lying in bed with my cat purring beside me, I stared at the ceiling and tried to process what had happened. Part of me was still scared, still waiting for him to change his mind, to decide it was too hard, too complicated. But another part of me, the part that had learned to trust my own feelings, believed him, believed in the sincerity I'd seen in his eyes, the courage it had taken for him to be that vulnerable. I picked up my phone and texted him, home safe, see you tomorrow. His response came almost immediately, can't wait. And then, a moment later, thank you for listening, for understanding, for giving me a chance. I typed back, thank you for being brave enough to tell me. The next morning I woke up early, nervous energy making it impossible to sleep in. I spent too long deciding what to wear, finally settling on jeans and a soft grey sweater. Casual, but like I'd made an effort. I arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early and immediately regretted it, convinced I looked too eager. But then Marcus walked in, and the smile on his face when he saw me erased every doubt. He looked different in the morning light, more relaxed than I'd ever seen him at work. He'd dressed casually too, jeans and a dark green Henley that brought out the gold flecks in his brown eyes. We ordered coffee and found a table in the corner away from the weekend crowd. For a few minutes we just sipped our drinks, the silence comfortable but charged with anticipation. So, he said finally, tell me something about yourself that I don't know. Something real. I thought about it. I'm scared too, I admitted. Of this, of what it might mean. I've spent a long time protecting myself, keeping people at a distance, letting you in. It feels like a risk. He reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of mine. An invitation, not a demand. Can we be scared together? He asked. I closed the distance, let my fingers brush against his. Yeah, I said. We can do that. And we did. We sat in that coffee shop for 3 hours talking about everything and nothing. He told me about growing up in a small town where everyone knew everyone, about the expectations he'd always felt to be a certain way, to want certain things. I told him about coming out in college, about the freedom and terror of finally being honest about who I was. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and moments of quiet understanding. At one point he linked his fingers through mine properly, and I felt the rightness of it settle into my bones. We left the coffee shop and walked through the city, no destination in mind, just wanting to be together. The December air was crisp, the streets decorated for Christmas, and everything felt alive with possibility. This is nice, he said at one point, his shoulder bumping against mine as we walked. It is, I agreed. He stopped walking, turning to face me on the crowded sidewalk. People flowed around us like water around stones. "I'm glad I told you," he said. "I'm glad I was brave enough for this." "Me too," I said, and meant it with everything in me. "I don't know what happens next," he continued. "I don't know how to do this, how to navigate all of it, but I want to try, with you." I reached up, let myself touch his face, my thumb brushing across his cheekbone. "Then we'll figure it out together," I said, "one day at a time." He leaned into my touch, his eyes closing briefly. When he opened them again, they were bright with emotion. "Thank you," he whispered. We stood there for a long moment, and I knew we were both thinking the same thing, wondering if this was the moment for a first kiss. But somehow it felt right to wait, to let the anticipation build, to savour this beginning. "Come on," I said finally, taking his hand. "Let's keep walking." And we did, through the winter streets of the city toward whatever came next, together.